The Great Hall of Concordia Prime shimmered with light from 1,000 worlds. Delegates from 73 different species gathered in celebration. It had been exactly 1,000 years since the last war in the galaxy. 1,000 years of peace. Admiral Kira Vashin stood at the edge of the crowd, her blue skin catching the light. She was Tarlaxian, and her people had led the Galactic Council's military forces for 3 centuries. But tonight she wore ceremonial robes instead of her uniform. Tonight was about celebration, not war. A wonderful evening, is it not? Dr. Oryx floated beside her. The crystalline being sparkled like a living diamond. He was the Council's chief historian, and he loved events like this. It is, Kira agreed. Though I wonder if we have forgotten important lessons. Which lessons? Oryx asked. The lessons that taught us to value peace in the first place. Kira looked across the hall. Most of these delegates have never seen war. They think peace is natural. They forget it must be protected, Oryx hummed thoughtfully. His kind communicated partially through vibration. You speak of the humans, Kira nodded. Every peace celebration we tell their story. The aggressive species that destroyed itself. The cautionary tale. But I studied the old records, Oryx. Something about their disappearance never made sense. Before Oryx could respond, alarms began to sound. Not the gentle chimes of the ceremony, but the harsh military alerts. Kira's communicator buzzed urgently against her wrist. Admiral Vashin, you need to see this immediately, the voice said. It was Commander Ralph, head of Deep Space Monitoring. Kira excused herself and rushed to the station's command center. The celebration hall's music faded behind her as she ran through the corridors. When she arrived, she found the command center in chaos. Officers from multiple species stood around the main display, their voices rising in confusion and fear. Report, Kira commanded. The room fell silent. Ralph, a 4-armed Tarlaxian like herself, gestured to the screen. Admiral, we received this signal from monitoring station Delta 7 at the edge of the Void Sector. The Void Sector. Even Kira felt a chill at those words. It was a region of space where ships went to die. Unstable gravity fields, random energy storms, and spatial anomalies made it impossible to navigate. No ship that entered the void ever returned. What kind of signal? Kira asked. Energy readings consistent with a capital-class vessel. Multiple vessels, actually. An entire fleet. Ralph's hands trembled as he worked the controls. The signatures don't match any current galactic ship designs. Pirates? Smugglers? No, Admiral. Ralph pulled up a data comparison. The computer archives flagged it. The signature matches. It matches human designs. The room went completely silent. Several officers made religious gestures. The humans had been gone for almost 250 years. Everyone knew they were extinct. That's impossible, someone whispered. Show me, Kira demanded. The main screen changed. It showed the grainy image from the long-range sensors. At first, Kira could barely make out the shapes. Then the computer enhanced the image and her hearts nearly stopped. A ship, no, a monster. It stretched across the screen like a metal mountain floating in space. The design was angular, brutal, and covered in weapons. Kira had seen the old records of human ships. This matched the descriptions of their legendary Supercarrier class, but it couldn't be real. The computer identifies it as the UES Indomitable, Ralph said quietly. Lost 247 years ago. It was humanity's most powerful warship. And it's not alone, another officer added. We count 73 other vessels. All human designs. All moving under full power. Kira leaned closer to the screen. The ships bore scars, massive tears in their hulls that had been repaired with rough patches. These were not museum pieces. These were warships that had seen battle. Are there life signs? She asked. Yes, Admiral. Thousands of them. Millions across the fleet, all human. The room erupted in noise again. Officers shouted questions and theories. Some called it a trick. Others invoked ancient prophecies. Kira held up her hand for silence. Where are they headed? Ralph's face grew grim. Directly toward Council space, Admiral. At speeds we've never seen from ships that size. If they maintain current velocity, they will reach the border in 3 days. 3 days. Kira's mind raced. She needed to inform the Council immediately. But first she needed more information. Can we hail them? We've been trying. No response, and keep trying. I want... Kira stopped. On the screen, the massive supercarrier had changed course slightly. It was turning toward the monitoring station. Are they targeting Delta 7? Unknown, but Ralph worked his console frantically. "Admiral, we're receiving a transmission. It's from the human fleet." On screen, the display changed. Static filled the screen for a moment, then cleared. A human woman appeared before them. She wore a dark uniform marked with symbols Kira didn't recognize. Her face was hard, with scars running down one side. Her eyes held the look of someone who had seen things no being should see. Behind her, Kira could see the bridge of the massive ship, filled with human crew members working at their stations. The woman spoke. Her voice was calm but carried absolute authority. "This is Fleet Admiral Sarah Chen of the Terran Expeditionary Force. We are transmitting on all Council frequencies. Our fleet is returning to known space after 247 years. Kira felt the room hold its breath. Sarah Chen continued. "We understand our appearance will cause alarm. We understand you believed us dead. We do not come seeking conflict." The Admiral paused and something flickered in her eyes. Fear? No, Kira realized. It was worse. It was the look of someone delivering terrible news. "But we do come bearing a warning. The galaxy has 3 days to prepare." Sarah Chen leaned forward. "They followed us home." The transmission ended. The screen went dark. For a long moment, nobody in the command center moved or spoke. Then slowly everyone turned to look at Admiral Kira Vashin. She straightened her shoulders. "Send immediate alerts to all council members. Recall all military personnel to their posts, and someone get me everything we have on human history, especially their disappearance." "Admiral, what do you think she meant?" Ralph asked. "Who followed them home?" Kira stared at the dark screen where Sarah Chen's face had been. She thought about the scars on those ships. She thought about the 247 years humans had been missing. And she thought about what kind of enemy could put that look in a soldier's eyes. "I don't know," she admitted. "But we're going to find out." "And Ralph?" "Yes, Admiral. Find Dr. Oryx. Tell him he's about to learn that history is more than old stories. Sometimes it comes back." In the celebration hall, the music still played. The delegates still danced and laughed, unaware that everything was about to change. But in the command center, Admiral Kira Vashin looked at the image of the human fleet on her screen and felt the galaxy shift beneath her feet. The humans had returned. And they had brought something with them. 2 days had passed since the transmission. The celebration on Concordia Prime had ended abruptly, replaced by emergency council sessions that lasted through the night. Now the human fleet hung at the edge of council space, and the entire galaxy watched with fear and wonder. Admiral Kira Vashin stood in the council chamber, exhausted but alert. Around her, representatives from dozens of species argued loudly. Some demanded the humans be destroyed immediately. Others wanted to welcome them. Most simply wanted to understand what was happening. Order. The council speaker, a wise old Zenthari named Orim, raised his staff. The room slowly quieted. "Admiral Vashin, what is the status of the human fleet?" Kira activated the holographic display. The massive form of the Indomitable appeared above the chamber floor. Gasps echoed through the room. Even as a hologram, the ship was terrifying. "The human fleet has stopped at the border as requested," Kira reported. "They have made no hostile moves. Fleet Admiral Chen has agreed to meet with us and explain their situation. It's obviously a trick." Commander Zaxthor stood. The Crinian was the largest being in the room, covered in thick armor-like skin. His species led the second most powerful military in the galaxy. Humans were always aggressive. They disappeared during a civil war. Now they return with weapons we've never seen? They mean to conquer us. Or they need our help, Dr. Oryx said quietly. The crystalline historian floated to the center of the chamber. "I have spent the last 2 days reviewing every record we have of humanity's disappearance. There are inconsistencies, questions that were never answered, such as," Orim asked, "such as why a civil war would cause every human to vanish completely, such as why their last transmission spoke of evacuation rather than defeat, such as why their final battles took place not on Earth, but in deep space heading away from their homeworld." Oryx projected images as he spoke. "I believe we misunderstood what happened. I believe humanity didn't destroy itself. They were running from something." "Speculation," Zaxthor growled. "Then let us hear the truth from them," Kira said. "Admiral Chen is ready to speak. I recommend we listen before making any decisions." After more debate, the council agreed. An hour later, Admiral Sarah Chen stood before them. In person, she was smaller than Kira expected. Humans were not large beings, But Chen carried herself like a warrior, and her eyes missed nothing as she studied the council members. "Thank you for seeing me," Chen began. Her voice was steady. "I know you have questions. I will answer them truthfully, though you may not like what you hear. Start with where you've been," Oram said gently. Chen nodded. 247 years ago, humanity discovered something. We detected a signal coming from the galactic core. It was clearly artificial, clearly advanced. We were excited. We thought we had found others like you, other civilizations to join in the galaxy. She paused. We were wrong. The chamber was silent. Chen continued. We sent our best science ships to investigate. They found a massive structure orbiting a black hole near the core. It was beautiful and terrible, and it was waiting for us. Chen's face hardened. They called themselves the architects. They were not alive, not in the way we understand. They were machines, but intelligent, ancient beyond measure, and they had one purpose: to harvest advanced civilizations. Harvest? Kira asked, though she feared the answer. They consume everything. Technology, biology, even culture. They break it all down and add it to themselves. They've been doing it for millions of years. Chen pulled up a hologram from her wrist device. It showed a massive ship, all angles and cold metal. This is an architect vessel. We've been fighting them for 2 centuries. The council chamber erupted in noise. Delegates shouted in disbelief. Some laughed. Others made gestures to ward off evil. Zaxthor's voice boomed above the rest. This is ridiculous. You expect us to believe in monster machines from ancient times? This is a story to frighten children. Chen didn't react to the outburst. She simply changed the hologram. Now it showed Earth. But not the Earth from the historical records. This Earth was burning. Massive machines tore through cities. Beams of light carved through the atmosphere. Millions died in the footage. The architects found Earth 3 days after we discovered them, Chen said quietly. They didn't communicate. They didn't warn us. They simply began harvesting. We fought back, but our weapons barely scratched them. In the first week, we lost 5 billion people. The chamber fell silent. Even Zaxthor stopped talking. Earth's high command made a desperate decision. We couldn't win, not there, not then, so we ran. We loaded every ship we could with people and supplies. We made it look like a civil war to hide the truth. We burned our own cities to deny the architects resources, and we fled into the void sector. The void? Kira gasped. But nothing survives in the void. Nothing from this part of space, Chen agreed. But humans are stubborn. We learned to navigate it. We established colonies on rogue planets deep in the unstable regions where the architects wouldn't follow. We survived by hiding, by moving constantly, by becoming ghosts. She paused. But they found us anyway. They always do. How did you fight them? Oryx asked. His voice vibrated with fascination and horror. By learning to think like them. By studying their technology. By becoming harder, faster, more ruthless than we ever wanted to be. Chen gestured to the hologram of the Indomitable. Every ship in our fleet has been rebuilt dozens of times. Every weapon we carry was designed to kill machines that don't fear death. We lost millions learning how to fight them, but eventually we started winning. She changed the hologram again. Now it showed a massive space battle. Human ships, smaller and faster, swarmed around giant architect vessels. Explosions lit the darkness. Ships on both sides died, but slowly the architects fell. 5 years ago, we destroyed their pursuing fleet. We captured one of their ships intact and learned something terrible. Chen's voice dropped. The architects have been watching the council species for centuries. They consider you ready for harvest. They're coming. When? Oram asked, his voice shaking. 6 months, maybe less. Chen looked at each council member in turn. They're bringing everything. World harvesters, processor ships, extermination fleets. They mean to take every advanced species in this part of the galaxy, and based on our experience, you're not ready to stop them. Zaxthor stood again. Even if we believe you, which I don't, why should we trust you? Why did you return? For the first time, Chen smiled. It was a sad smile. Because we're human, Commander. We ran once to survive. We won't run again. This is our galaxy too. And because, she looked directly at Kira, no one should have to learn to fight the architects alone. We learned the hard way. We're offering to teach you the easy way. There's an easy way? Kira asked. Easier, Chen corrected. Not easy. Never easy, Dr. Oryx floated forward. Admiral Chen, I must ask. You have proof of all this? Chen nodded to someone off screen. A moment later, Data began flooding into the Council systems. Oryx gasped as he processed it. Battle records, ship designs, biological samples from architect machines, and most damning archaeological data. These ruins, Oryx whispered. I've studied 17 sites across Council space that showed signs of previous civilizations, advanced civilizations that vanished completely. I never connected them. But this data, the timeline matches. The architects have been here before. The Council chamber fell into stunned silence. Slowly, delegates began to understand. The humans weren't invading. They were bringing a warning. And the proof was written in the ancient graves of civilizations that came before. Orim stood, his old body trembling. The Council will deliberate. Admiral Chen, you and your people will wait at the border. We will give you our answer soon. Chen saluted, a human gesture. Don't take too long. The architects don't wait for anyone to be ready. As Chen's image faded, Kira looked around the chamber. She saw fear in the faces around her, fear and disbelief. But she also saw something else in a few faces. She saw the beginning of understanding. The humans had spent 2 centuries learning to fight monsters. Now they were offering to share that knowledge. The question was whether the Council would be wise enough to listen. The Council vote took 3 days. In the end, the galaxy split almost perfectly in half. 47 species, led by the Tarlaxians and the Crystalline Consortium, voted to accept human help and prepare for the architects. 30 species, led by Commander Zaxthor's Crinian Empire, voted against it. Kira stood in the command center watching the Crinian fleet assemble. 8,000 warships, the second largest military force in the galaxy. They surrounded the human fleet in a massive sphere of firepower. It made her sick to watch. This is madness, she said to Dr. Oryx beside her. We should be preparing together, not fighting each other. Fear makes people foolish, Oryx replied. His crystalline body dimmed with sadness. Zaxthor believes the humans are lying. He thinks if he destroys them now, he becomes the hero who saved the galaxy. On the main screen, Zaxthor's face appeared. He was broadcasting to the entire galaxy. People of the Council, do not be deceived by human tricks. They speak of machine monsters to frighten us, but I see only one threat, humanity itself. Today, the Cranian Empire will remove that threat forever. The transmission switched to Admiral Chen aboard the Indomitable. Her face was calm, but Kira could see the tiredness in her eyes. How many times had she been forced to fight when she didn't want to? Commander Zaxthor, please reconsider, Chen said. We don't want to fight you. We need to work together. The architects, enough lies, Zaxthor roared. You have 1 hour to surrender your ships and leave Council space. If you refuse, we will destroy you. Chen was quiet for a moment. When she spoke again, her voice was soft but carried across every channel in the galaxy. Commander, we've been fighting for 200 years. We've faced enemies you can't imagine. We've died by the millions. We came here to help, not to conquer, she paused. But if you force this fight, you need to understand something. We've been at war since before your grandfather was born. You've been at peace for 1,000 years. Don't do this, please. Zaxthor cut the transmission. His fleet began powering weapons. Kira grabbed her communicator. All Tarlaxian ships pull back. Do not engage. This is madness, but we won't add to it. Admiral, one of her officers said quietly. The human fleet isn't retreating. Kira looked at the tactical display. The human ships remained in position, shields up but weapons still powered down. Chen was giving Zaxthor every chance to back down. But Kira knew the Crinian commander. His pride wouldn't allow retreat. The first Crinian missiles launched. Thousands of them, enough firepower to destroy a small moon. The galaxy watched, waiting for the humans to be overwhelmed. The missiles never hit. Human point defense systems activated. Lasers and projectiles filled space. Every single missile was destroyed before reaching the human shields. Not most of them. All of them. The precision was impossible. No fleet had defenses that perfect. Zaxthor roared orders. His fleet opened fire with everything. Energy beams, railguns, plasma cannons. The combined firepower of 8,000 ships focused on 73 human vessels, and the humans didn't break. Their shields flashed and held. Where shields failed, armor took the hits. Where armor breached, internal bulkheads sealed. The human ships moved in patterns that seemed random, but made targeting nearly impossible. They flew like dancers, like fighters, like nothing the Crinians had ever faced. Then the humans began to fight back, but they didn't destroy. Kira watched in amazement as human weapons targeted engines, not life support. They disabled weapons, not crew quarters. Ship after ship in the Crinian fleet went dark, drifting but intact. The crews were alive. The humans were fighting a battle of mercy. How are they doing this? One of Kira's officers whispered. 200 years of war, Kira said quietly. They learned to win without becoming monsters. The Indomitable moved through the Crinian fleet like a giant among children. It was massive, yes, but it moved with grace that defied its size. Its weapons reached out with impossible accuracy. 300 Crinian battleships were disabled in the first 10 minutes. Not destroyed. Disabled. Zaxthor screamed orders for his ships to regroup, but human fighters swarmed around Crinian flagships. Kira watched on her screens as human soldiers in powered armor boarded the Crinian command vessels. But they weren't killing. They were forcing manual shutdowns, then providing medical aid to injured Crinian crews. Admiral Chen's voice broadcast on open channels. We don't want to kill you. We're not your enemy. Please stand down. But Zaxthor wouldn't listen. Kira saw his flagship moving on her tactical display. It was heading toward something specific. Her blood went cold when she realized what he was targeting. No, she whispered. He wouldn't, but he would. Zaxthor's flagship launched a planet-killer missile. The target was clear. The human colony ship holding thousands of civilian refugees. Men, women, and children who had survived 2 centuries in the void, now about to be murdered to make a point. Chen, Kira screamed into her communicator. Planet killer incoming on your colony ship. On her screen, she saw Chen's face change. The calm mask fell away, replaced by cold fury. The Admiral gave one sharp order to her crew. The Indomitable turned, faster than any ship that size should move. What happened next would be talked about for generations. A port opened on the Indomitable's underside. Something that looked like a cannon emerged, but it was wrong. Space around it bent and twisted. Kira's instruments screamed warnings about gravity fluctuations. The weapon fired. It wasn't a beam or a projectile. It was something else. Reality itself seemed to tear along the weapon's path. The planet-killer missile simply ceased to exist, torn apart at the molecular level. But the weapon didn't stop there. The tear in space expanded, creating a temporary hole in reality. 17 Crinian warships that were too close got pulled in before the hole collapsed. The entire galaxy fell silent. The weapon shouldn't exist. The physics shouldn't work. But the humans had made it work because they had to. Because the architects forced them to learn how to break reality itself. Admiral Chen's voice cut through the silence. It was cold, controlled, furious. That was a graviton lance. We developed it fighting the architects. It can tear through anything. Space, matter, energy. We have 6 of them. And we have weapons much worse. She paused. This is what we learned in 200 years of war. This is what's coming for you. Now will you listen? Zaxthor's fleet stopped firing. His ships hung in space, crews stunned by what they had witnessed. The commander himself appeared on screen, his face pale. What are you? He asked. Chen's expression softened slightly. We're what you become when you have no choice but to fight or die. We're what happens when peace isn't an option anymore. She looked directly at the Crinian commander. We're survivors, and we're trying to help you survive too. On Concordia Prime, Kira made a decision. She opened a channel to the entire council. This is Admiral Vashin. I am formally requesting that the council accept human assistance in defending against the architect threat. We have just witnessed what humanity learned in 2 centuries of desperate combat. Imagine what they'll teach us if we work together. Imagine what we can become. Dr. Oryx floated beside her. And if we refuse their help? Kira looked at the image of the Indomitable on her screen. She thought about the precision of the human attacks, the mercy they showed even while being attacked, the terrible weapons they developed but only used when absolutely necessary. Then we'll face the architects alone, she said, and we'll learn what the humans already know. That survival requires sacrifice, that war is horror, and that sometimes the only way to protect what you love is to become something you never wanted to be. Across the galaxy, votes were changing. Species that had refused human help began reconsidering. Even some of Zaxthor's allies quietly sent messages to Chen, asking for information about the architects. The battle was over. But the real war was about to begin. And now, at least, the galaxy would face it together. Admiral Chen stood on the bridge of the Indomitable, watching repairs begin on both human and Crinian ships. Her crew was exhausted. They had hoped to avoid this fight. But at least now the galaxy understood. The humans weren't conquerors. They were survivors trying to share their hard-won knowledge. A message came through from Kira. Admiral Chen, the Council has voted. They accept your help. When do we begin preparations? Chen looked at the chronometer on her display. 6 months until the architects arrive. Maybe less. We begin immediately, Admiral Vashin, and pray that 6 months is enough. 3 months of preparation felt like both forever and no time at all. Kira stood in the training center aboard Concordia Prime, watching Council soldiers learn human tactics. It was painful to observe, again, shouted Sergeant Marcus Webb, a human trainer with scars covering his arms. You're fighting machines, not honor-bound warriors. There's no glory here. Only survival. A group of Tarlaxian soldiers tried the drill again. They moved too slowly, too carefully. Webb shook his head. In a real fight, you'd all be dead. The architects don't miss. They don't hesitate. They process you into raw materials. One of the Tarlaxian soldiers, young and proud, stepped forward. These tactics are dishonorable. We hide, we ambush, we retreat. This is not how warriors fight. Webb walked up to the soldier until they were face to face. You're right. This isn't warrior fighting. This is survival fighting, and there's a difference. He pulled up a hologram showing a battle. This was the defense of New Terra, one of our void colonies. We had 3,000 soldiers. The architects brought 50,000 machines. We couldn't fight them honorably, so we fought dirty. Traps, ambushes, sacrifices. We lost 2,000 people, but we won. That young soldier? He pointed to a figure in the hologram. That's me. 20 years ago. Everyone in that hologram is dead now except me. I learned real fast that honor doesn't stop you from being processed into scrap metal. The training center fell quiet. The young Tarlaxian looked at the hologram, then back at Webb. I understand, Sergeant. Teach us. Across the station, Dr. Oryx worked with human scientists. They were showing him architect technology, and each discovery horrified him more. This isn't technology in the traditional sense, explained Dr. Sarah Kim, a human xenobiologist. The architects are post-biological. They were once organic, maybe millions of years ago, but they converted themselves into machines, then decided to convert everyone else too. Why? Oryx asked. What's their purpose? Kim shrugged. We don't know. Maybe they think they're saving species by adding them to their collective. Maybe they're just programmed to consume and don't remember why. We captured one of their processor units intact 5 years ago. The AI inside was disturbing. It spoke about bringing order to chaos, about perfecting imperfect biology. It genuinely believed it was helping us. She pulled up an image of an architect drone. It was beautiful in a cold way, all elegant curves and precise angles. Each unit is intelligent but connected to the collective. Kill one and the others learn from it immediately. That's why fighting them is so hard. They adapt. Then how did humanity win? Oryx asked. By being more unpredictable than they could adapt to. By using tactics they couldn't understand because they're not organic anymore. By being willing to sacrifice in ways their programming couldn't predict. Kim's face darkened. And by developing weapons that break their fundamental operating principles. Meanwhile, Admiral Chen met with military leaders from across the Council. A massive holographic display showed the galaxy, with red markers indicating where architect forces were expected to arrive. They'll come from multiple vectors, Chen explained. The architects don't care about supply lines or reinforcements. They bring everything at once, one massive wave meant to overwhelm any defense. Commander Zaxthor, now working reluctantly with the humans, studied the display. How many ships? Based on the data we recovered, approximately 12,000 vessels. 7 of them are world harvesters. Chen zoomed in on an image. Each world harvester is the size of a small moon. They can literally eat a planet over several weeks, converting all matter into more ships and drones. If even one reaches a populated world, that world is gone. Kira felt her blood chill. How do we stop them? By bleeding them before they reach any worlds. We need to create a defensive line in deep space, force them to fight through us before they can threaten any colonies. Chen pulled up a new display. I recommend the Theranos line. It's a binary star system with natural choke points. We position the main fleet there and force the architects to come to us. That puts the Indomitable at the center of the defense, Kira noted. Chen nodded. My ship is the most heavily armed and armored vessel in the fleet. It makes sense tactically. It also makes it the primary target, Zaxthor said. You're offering to be the bait. Someone has to be. Chen's voice was matter-of-fact. Better my ship than a council vessel. We know how to take damage. The planning continued for hours. Humans shared tactical data they had paid for in blood. Council species contributed their own strengths. Tarlaxian shield technology, Crenian heavy armor, crystalline consortium sensor arrays. Slowly, a combined fleet began to take shape. 3 weeks before the architects were expected, the sensors detected something. Kira's communicator buzzed urgently. Admiral, we have contacts. Multiple ships entering council space from 3 different vectors. The architects? Kira asked, already running to the command center. Yes, ma'am. These match human descriptions. They're scout forces. The galaxy's first real test had arrived. 3 separate architect fleets, each consisting of several hundred ships, attacked 3 outer colonies simultaneously. Council forces engaged immediately. It was a disaster. Kira watched the tactical feeds in horror. Council ships fired everything they had. Missiles, beams, kinetic weapons. The architect vessels took damage but kept coming. Their adaptive shields learned from each hit, making subsequent attacks less effective. Their weapons were brutally precise, targeting critical systems first. Colony Delta is evacuating, but they won't make it in time, an officer reported. The architects are breaking through. Where are the human ships? Kira demanded, inbound. ETA 3 minutes, 3 minutes. Hundreds would die in 3 minutes. Kira made a decision. All Tarlaxian ships form up on me. We're going to shield the evacuation transports. Admiral, that's suicide, someone said. Then we die. Kira's voice was hard. But those people live, move. Her fleet positioned themselves between the architect vessels and the fleeing colony ships. Architect weapons tore into Tarlaxian shields. Ships began to fail. Kira's own vessel shuddered under impacts. Then the humans arrived. They didn't announce themselves. They simply appeared and started killing architects. Human ships moved between the architect vessels like predators, targeting weak points with surgical precision. Their weapons ignored architect shields, striking the hull directly. Human fighters swarmed over the larger architect ships, finding and destroying key systems. But most importantly, the humans knew how to sacrifice. Kira watched as a human destroyer, too damaged to fight, rammed directly into an architect cruiser. The explosion took out 3 more enemy ships. The destroyer's crew had time to evacuate but chose not to. They chose to be the weapon. Marines boarding architect vessels, someone reported. They're setting demolition charges. Kira pulled up the feed. Human soldiers in powered armor fought through architect drones, taking horrific casualties. But they kept moving forward. Some carried explosives. Others carried virus programs to inject into architect systems. One group of Marines held a corridor for 10 minutes against waves of drones, knowing they would die but buying time for another team to reach the architect ship's core. The battle lasted 6 hours. When it was over, the architect scouts were destroyed. But the cost was terrible. 700 council ships damaged or destroyed, 3,000 personnel dead. The outer colonies were evacuated successfully, but the facilities were lost. The human casualties were somehow worse. 40% of the ships Chen sent were gone. 15,000 humans dead. The Indomitable had positioned itself as a shield multiple times, taking massive damage to protect council evacuation vessels. Kira visited the Indomitable after the battle. The massive ship's hull was breached in 20 places. Repair crews worked frantically. She found Admiral Chen in the medical bay, her arm in a sling, overseeing treatment for her injured crew. Admiral Chen, Kira said quietly. Chen turned. She looked exhausted. Admiral Vashin, your people fought well today. We fought poorly. We were being slaughtered until you arrived. Kira looked around the medical bay. So many injured. Your people saved us. That's why we came back. Chen gestured to a nearby chair. They both sat. This was just a scouting force. The real fleet will be here in 3 weeks. Will we be ready? Chen was quiet for a moment. I don't know. Your people learned today what fighting the architects really means. Some will learn faster, others. She didn't finish. How many more will die? Kira asked. All of us if we lose. Chen looked directly at her. But if we win, we'll lose at least half our forces. Maybe more. The architects don't retreat. They don't surrender. They're machines with a mission. We either destroy them completely or they destroy us. Kira thought about the young Tarlaxian soldier in training. She thought about the humans who rammed their ship into the enemy, She thought about the galaxy she was sworn to protect. "Then we teach the galaxy to fight," she said finally. "Like you taught yourselves. However long it takes, whatever it costs." Chen smiled sadly. "Welcome to the war, Admiral." 2 weeks later, the long-range sensors detected it. The main architect fleet, 12,000 vessels, 7 world harvesters. They were 3 weeks from the Theranos line. The galaxy was about to learn what humanity had learned over 2 centuries. The Theranos line was the most heavily defended position in galactic history. 4,000 council ships, 73 human vessels, and at the center of it all, the wounded but unbowed Indomitable. Admiral Kira Vashon stood on the bridge of her flagship, watching the final preparations. Around her, crews from dozens of species worked together, using human tactics and council technology. In 3 weeks, they had learned more about war than in 1,000 years of peace. Final weapons check complete, her tactical officer reported. "All ships report ready," Kira nodded. She opened a channel to Admiral Chen aboard the Indomitable. "We're ready, Admiral." Chen's face appeared on screen. She looked tired but determined. "Good, they'll be here soon. Remember what we taught you. Don't try to be heroes. Heroes die fast against the architects. Be survivors." "Understood." Kira hesitated. "Admiral, I want to say—" "I save it for after," Chen interrupted, but she was smiling. "We've got a battle to win first." The sensors screamed. Space itself seemed to tear open as the architect fleet arrived. 12,000 vessels emerged from quantum space like a swarm of metal insects. At the center were 7 world harvesters, each the size of a small moon, their surfaces covered in processing machinery. "Gods," someone whispered. Kira forced herself to stay calm. "All ships hold position. Wait for the architects to commit." The architect fleet didn't hesitate. They immediately began moving toward the binary stars, their ships spreading out to surround the defensive line. Their formation was perfect, each ship positioned with mathematical precision. No wasted movement, no uncertainty, just cold mechanical efficiency. "They're starting to harvest the stars," Dr. Oryx reported from the science station. "They're using the stellar material to build more ships." "Then we stop them before they can finish," Chen's voice came through. "All human ships pattern Delta. Council forces cover our advance." The human ships broke formation and accelerated toward the architect lines. They moved in a pattern that seemed chaotic but wasn't. Each ship covered another's weak points. They wove through architect fire like dancers through rain. Council ships opened fire, drawing architect attention. The battle began. The first day was hell. Architect weapons tore through shields and armor with terrifying efficiency. Their adaptive systems learned from every attack, making them harder to damage with each passing hour. But the combined fleet held the line. Human tactics, constantly changing and unpredictable, kept the architects off balance. Council firepower, concentrated and coordinated, destroyed enemy vessels. But the cost was terrible. Ships died. Thousands of beings from dozens of species sacrificed themselves to hold the line. Kira watched a crystalline consortium vessel, its shields failing, deliberately ram an architect world harvester. The explosion damaged the massive ship but didn't stop it. "Left flank is collapsing," her tactical officer shouted. Kira saw it immediately. An architect world harvester had broken through, heading toward Council home space. If it reached a populated system, millions would die. "This is Admiral Vashon," she broadcast. "I need all available ships to form on me. We're stopping that harvester." "Admiral, we don't have enough ships," someone protested. "Then we make do with what we have. Move." 73 council ships followed her into the breach. They fought like humans had taught them, using everything. Sacrifice plays, ramming attacks, coordinated strikes on specific weak points. They lost 3/4 of their ships, but the world harvester was destroyed. Kira's own vessel was crippled, life support failing. She ordered her crew to evacuate, but she stayed on the bridge, coordinating the surviving ships. Someone had to give the orders. Someone had to lead. A rescue ship arrived just as her bridge lost atmosphere. She woke up in a medical bay, alive but knowing many weren't so lucky. The second day was worse. The architects pushed harder, learning from the first day's losses. They targeted command ships, trying to disrupt coordination. They focused fire on damaged vessels, eliminating them efficiently. The galaxy's forces were dying by the thousands. The Indomitable took the brunt of the assault. Chen positioned her massive ship as a mobile fortress, covering retreats and shielding damaged vessels. The Supercarrier's armor was scarred and broken. Sections were open to space, but it kept fighting. On the third day, Kira returned to command. Her injuries were bandaged, but she refused to stay in medical. The fleet needed every leader it had. She took control of a smaller vessel and rejoined the battle. That's when Chen's broadcast came through. "All ships, this is Admiral Chen. I'm about to tell you something we hoped never to use. Something humanity swore we'd never deploy again." Kira's blood went cold. She knew what Chen was going to say. "The Void Sector didn't just hide us," Chen continued. "We learned to weaponize it. We discovered how to tear holes in reality itself. The Indomitable was designed as a delivery system for this weapon. It's called the Oblivion Protocol." "What does it do?" someone asked over the channel. "It creates a collapse into quantum foam. Everything within a light minute ceases to exist, including the ship that fires it." Chen paused. "Including everyone aboard that ship." The channel went silent. Kira understood immediately. Chen was going to sacrifice the Indomitable and everyone on it to destroy the Architect fleet. "No," Kira broadcast. "Chen, there has to be another way." "There isn't. We're losing, Admiral." "You know it, I know it. But if we can draw the Architects close enough, we can end this with one strike." Chen's voice was steady. "I'm asking for volunteers to stay aboard. Everyone else will evacuate." Kira pulled up the feed from the Indomitable's bridge. Chen stood there addressing her crew. 10,000 humans remained alive on the massive ship. Chen explained the plan, explained what it would cost. Then she asked who would stay. Every single hand went up. Every single crew member volunteered to die, not out of some sense of glory or honor. They simply understood that someone had to do it and they were already here. "We've been at war for 200 years, one young human said. "If this is how it ends, at least it means something." Kira felt tears on her face. "All Council ships, this is Admiral Vashin. We're going to give the Indomitable the opening it needs. No matter what it costs us," the entire fleet understood. They launched everything they had at the Architects, drawing them in. Human ships that could barely fly threw themselves at the enemy. Council vessels fought with a fury born of witnessing true sacrifice. The Indomitable began its final journey. It accelerated toward the heart of the Architect formation, engines burning at maximum. Enemy fire tore into its hull, but it kept going. The world harvesters, sensing the energy buildup, moved to intercept. Exactly as Chen planned. "All ships clear the area," Chen ordered. "This is going to be big." The surviving Council and human ships pulled back. Kira watched on her screen as the Indomitable, burning and broken but still flying, reached the center of the Architect fleet. The world harvesters surrounded it, trying to destroy the threat. Chen's voice came through one last time. "For Earth, for the Council, for everyone who fights when they'd rather run." A pause. "And for peace. Real peace. The kind worth dying for." The Indomitable fired the Oblivion Protocol, reality screamed. Space itself tore open. The singularity expanded. A sphere of absolute nothing consuming everything it touched. The Indomitable vanished first, its crew gone in an instant. Then the Architects. The world harvesters caught in the gravity well couldn't escape. Thousands of Architect ships pulled toward the expanding nothing. The effect lasted 7 seconds. When it collapsed, 90% of the Architect fleet was simply gone. No debris, no remains, just empty space where a fleet had been. The surviving Architect ships, leaderless and confused, were quickly destroyed by the remaining Council forces. The battle was over. The galaxy had won, but the silence that followed was deafening. Kira sat in her command chair staring at the empty space where the Indomitable had been. 10,000 humans. Gone. They had saved the galaxy and paid the ultimate price for it. "Admiral," Dr. Oryx's voice was soft. "We're receiving damage reports. Casualties are extensive. Over half the fleet was gone. Hundreds of thousands dead from dozens of species. But they had won. They had survived. Because humanity taught them how." 1 year later, Kira stood at the dedication ceremony for the memorial. At the Theranos line, where the battle had been fought, they had erected a monument. A perfect holographic recreation of the Indomitable, forever frozen in the moment before its final act. Around it, the names of every being who had died in the battle scrolled endlessly. Dr. Oryx had published his historical account. It was simply titled, "Humanity, the Species That Taught the Galaxy to Fight." It was required reading across Council space now. The remaining human fleet had integrated fully with Council forces, forming the Terran Council Alliance. Humanity's hidden colonies in the void sector revealed themselves, and billions of humans began returning to known space. They were welcomed as heroes, but Kira knew the truth. They weren't heroes. They were survivors who had been forced to become warriors, and they had paid a terrible price for that transformation. As the ceremony ended, a young human girl approached Kira. She was maybe 10 years old, one of the children from the colony ships. "Excuse me, Admiral," the girl said shyly. "My mother was on the..."